So now that my friend has the Sony PlayStation, there he is, the cool kid on the block. And what am I doing? Waiting for the Nintendo Ultra 64. And the Ultra 64 was delayed constantly, time after time after time. And then the name change, Nintendo 64, it's no longer Ultra. And finally a release date, September 30th, 1996. I'm going to start right off the bat and say that I didn't purchase the N64 right away. I still had the Super NES because I had purchased it late, and I was still enjoying it for all that it was worth, so it was okay. But in the first Game Capsule video, I pretty much explained to you how my first experience with Mario 64 and Nintendo 64 was. I played it at Blockbuster Video, and for some reason, Mario didn't work. And I thought the controls were broken. I'm like, man, is this how the game plays? That is until I played it at Toys R Us. Now, you wouldn't believe, and I know some of you that remember this, Toys R Us set it up almost like an arcade where they had N64 after N64 after N64 lined up. And people were playing it. We had some people already like at Bowser, the first Bowser stage. We had people playing through Bob on Battlefield. We had people playing through Whomp's Fortress. We had people playing Mario 64, and I was just amazed. And I was excited. People were excited. This was Nintendo's time. Now, I would go to Toys R Us as much as possible after school just to play Mario 64. I probably got the first 8 to 12 stars that way, just from playing at Toys R Us. Now, I was so obsessed over Mario 64, I was reading about it. I was drawing it. I was so like, oh, I can't wait to play this game again. It was just so amazing to me, and I just couldn't wait to own it. I mean, when Christmas came around, wow, I dreamt about it the night before. I'm like, oh my gosh, Santa's going to bring me Mario 64 and Nintendo 64, and I'm going to get to play it all day, and it's going to be so awesome. And yes, I sadly dreamt about it. Like, I dreamt about, I don't know, being Mario. It was really, I don't even know why I'm admitting this to you guys. Yeah, it's Christmas, you're a kid, I'm sure you've been there. And the next day, run down the stairs, Christmas presents everywhere, oh my gosh. There it was. All a kid can ask for, as many presents as possible, and not a Nintendo 64 in sight. Oh, damn it. Then sometime the next year, my Super NES broke. So I was out of a console, and guess what? Grandma said she'd buy me a Nintendo 64. And I was like, yeah, right, Grandma, stop it, shut up, And Grandma's like, no, really, I'm gonna get it for you. We're getting it. And I was like, really? I mean, she was serious. I mean, this is what puts the grand in grandmothers. They do the things that your parents would never do. So, there I was, 14 years old, and I call in sick for school, no kidding, and Grandma and I go to Best Buy to buy a Nintendo 64. Awesome. Now, I was for sure the N64 kid in 8th grade, because I don't really recall my friends and I getting into fanboy arguments, because they knew N64 was awesome, and I knew PlayStation was awesome, and we kind of, like, knew that, and we never really had that fanboyism during this era of time for me. If anything, the N64 was criticized by my friends for the third-party games. Now, of course, I'm not going to really argue with them, because, yeah, the third-party games weren't that great, but the first-party games, as usual in Nintendo, starting in this era, are awesome. I mean, N64 has awesome first-party games, so does the GameCube, so does Wii. So that's just how it always has been. I mean, again, I was known as the N64 guy because only me and my best friend at the time really had N64. And, I mean, I loved it so much. I had, what number as my basketball jersey? 64? I know, it's kind of lame. It's more of a football number, but that's what I had. I mean, I was that into Nintendo 64. My friend Nick and I would always quote Star Fox 64 during class, and the teacher would be like, Mr. Gomez, would you like detention? And I was just like, just thought that was even funnier, so we just continued on and on and on and on. Check your G diffuser systems. Fox, you made it. Bill, is that you? I can't believe it. Don't get too excited. Here we go. We'll catch up later, Fox. Do a barrel roll.
Whoa, help me. Thanks, Fox. I thought they had me.
Then I remember playing GoldenEye 007 4-player mode with my friends, just staying up all night playing the game. It was awesome. And I remember I always had the advantage because I knew how to do that trick with the remote mines, where if you threw the remote mines and press A and B together, that they explode. I mean, I would always win, or usually always win, and my friends like, my God, how do you do that? What are you doing? And then they kind of catch on, and then they learned how to do it, and then it just get more competitive. And I was really competitive in multiplayer, so, you know, they gloat and stuff when they beat me, but then I just beat them the next time. Then around 1998, I moved with my father, and he was living in New Jersey at the time, so that's where I went to high school the first couple of years, and while I was watching MTV one night, I saw this commercial, and I was like, wow, oh my God. Now, I've always read about Zelda 64 in the magazines and all that stuff coming up, and I was already excited about it, but when I saw that commercial, that solidified my purchase for Zelda Ocarina of Time. Because when I finally purchased that game, I have never played a video game like it in my life, where I was so immersed in its world, and its characters, and its story. I was blown away by it, and every chance I had, I tried to play that game. So it was like right after school, I was playing it, you know, wee hours of the night playing it. I was totally immersed in that game, and it's just unbelievable how much of a fanboy of that game I am. I mean, I bought the t-shirts and like a hat, and you may have seen those in old videos. I have purchased like the soundtrack, and I have like the action figures. I mean, I love that game. It's still my favorite game ever, and I'm sure it's a lot of gamers' favorite game too, but it personally is mine because of how awesome it is. Now, you know, people always mention it's nostalgia, and that's why you think it's the best ever, but I can play that game right now and still say it's one of the best games ever made, if not the best. I think it is the best, but it is that good. So, I mean, during that time, I was so excited for the 64 disc drive to come out, because they said there's going to be a different version of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and of course, disc drive pretty much bombed in Japan and never came out here. So Ocarina of Time 64 DD, you know, ended up being the Master Quest, and they released that on the GameCube. So thankfully I got to finally play that, and that was cool, just little tweaks in the dungeons, but still it was cool to play the game like a second or third time a different way, because the dungeons were a little different. So Zelda Ocarina of Time, wow, game of the century, the millennium for me. It was that awesome for me. It's my favorite game. Now I can probably go on and on and on about the Nintendo 64 and how awesome the games are and such, but I'm not going to do that because the video would be probably, 8 hours long. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm just going to end it right here. But if you guys are interested in seeing my Nintendo 64 collection, I mean, it's not that huge, but it's my personal collection, and I'm still buying, you know, more games for Nintendo 64. It's going to be on my vlog channel. Check here, and I'll show you those games and show you what I have and what I plan to buy and that kind of stuff. So go check that out and subscribe to that channel if you're interested in seeing more personal videos from me other than video games and movie reviews here on AG Entertainment. Other than that, I'm just going to stop right here too, because although Super Nintendo and PlayStation 1, in my opinion, are probably the best consoles ever, and maybe even PlayStation 2, the Nintendo 64 to me was the most important, I think. It was probably the most important part of my childhood, because, I mean, my friends and I, we played it, and we had, like, you know, sleepovers, and we played GoldenEye all night, and, you know, my friends and I had introduced, you know, different games to each other, like Star Fox 64, and my friend Nick, he introduced me to, like, WCW, NWO Revenge, so then I kind of got into wrestling, and then WWF No Mercy, and then I actually learned how to play, you know, soccer, or not really learned how to play soccer, but learned the rules of soccer from the game International Superstar Soccer 64, and, I mean, games in this era for me became part of my life. And they taught me other things and introduced me to other things. So it's pretty awesome. So today I still play my Nintendo 64, mostly for speedrun challenges, especially with Mario 64. So that's what I pretty much play it for today. Now, when the GameCube came around, my expectations were really high, especially since the Nintendo 64 was so near and dear to my heart. If you'd like to hear more about what I think about the Nintendo 64, go check out an old video I made called Nothing is Wrong with Nintendo 64. I hope, you know, that will satisfy your hunger of, you know, if you want to know more about what I think of the console and what it meant to me. But until then, we will now talk about the GameCube and how college kind of got in the way.